This conference will now be recorded.
Protocols and the port numbers. What is the port number for DHCP? Hello. Is it audible? What is the port number for DNS?
53.
FTP?
25.
SSH?
It is 22.
Telnet?
23.
So what is the telnet and what is the any idea what is the SSH and what is the telnet?
No.
So SSH. So if you want to connect any of the devices, let's say I have so any of the server you wanted to connect so via command prompt. So you're gonna use SSH. It's a secure whenever you're trying to connect, let's say there was a device, there was a one server, so you secure a there was a Wintel server. Wintel guy want to communicate from his computer. Okay. His computer, he want to connect the server and he want to do some modifications or he want to do some changes. So what he will do? He will go to the command prompt and he will give the server's IP address. Let's say 10.0.0. Example. So what happens? What do you mean by this is, so he is connecting to the server with a secure connection. It's a secure layer, and once if you give the SSH and the IP address, what happens? So it prompt for a password of, first it asks the username. So who is the user? He's a user, Wintel guy. He will give his, let's say his username is something admin, and then he'll give the password as something like password@123. So what happened? The whole usernames and passwords will be encrypted. So the encrypted username and password will go to the server. Why? Because why in encryption? So in between, somebody can capture your traffic. Somebody in between middle, some guy will capture the traffic and can get the username and password. So there was a couple of sniffing tools like Wireshark, all the stuff. So what it will do? It will capture the username and password. So these are, if you're not transmitting via SSH, so all the users name and passwords will be, if you capture the traffic and you will be able to see the username and password. If you are sending the via SSH, everything will be encrypted, so you cannot read what the administrator has sent. So that is a SSH. So SSH opposite is a telnet. Telnet is also the same. It also do the same function, but there is no encryption will be all the username and passwords will be sending in a plain text format. Got it? That's the SSH and LN. So anything, let's say if I in a command prompt, I just go through command prompt. So I'll give something SSH. I don't have any devices. I don't have any devices right now, so it doesn't work. This is how you'll be able to. I'll show you another day. How we connect to servers via SSH. But it's now recording. I'm not able to show. I'll connect to a couple of my servers by using SSH. I'll show you tomorrow. That's SSH SNMP. Sorry, SSH and Telnet. What about the port number? HTTPS, what is the port number? HTTPS. Sorry?
443.
Okay. DHCP?
DHCP it is 6768.
Okay, 67 is what and 68 is what?
Source and
Yesterday we,
destination.
no. Port number 67 is used for which purpose? Port number 68 is used for which purpose? So every port number has some specific service, right?
For
So, yeah. And the DHCP itself, 67 is used for what, and 67, who use that 67? Either a server will use it 68 or a client machine will use. Usually, what is the process? DHCP process? It works on a DORA process. Client sends a broadcast packet, and the server will reply. So that's how it assigns the IP, right?
yes.
So who is client is sending a broadcast users.
So I think the client is 68 and DHCP is 67.
Okay. Fine. Fine. So I'll try to share the material for whatever I have covered. I'll try to share as by the end of this month. I'll share it. And so I'm preparing. By the end of this month, I'll share both of your CVs. Okay. So it's completely another. I'm using another template, not your old template. In whatever you have shared, I'm using another template. And before that, you just let me know. So whether okay, I'll discuss this offline. Okay, after completing the class, I'll discuss. So today we're gonna discuss. So the complete architecture. So we will complete the networking today. So before wind up the class, the networking session, So we'll talk about the complete network network architecture. So what are the components are there? So we'll discuss every component today. Okay. So the typical network architecture looks. So it is. So if you look at if you look at any of the organization, so how the architecture, typical architecture. The first is internet facing router. So this is the internet. Okay. This is the internet facing router. Okay. After that, there was a device called as a firewall. As a fire from firewall was another device was IPS and IPS. The next level layer will be proxy device. Then next will be switches. So it's a switch. So in the switch, so our devices, our all user machines are connected switch. This is the one VLAN, and here, so we have another. Let's say here. Is something called. This is a all over here user missions. Here, these all are some servers. Again, we have the DMZ, dematerialize zero. Okay, this is how the typical network architecture. So if you look at any of the company, this is how the organization architecture will be there. So this is a so we'll discuss so one by one component and their functionalities. Just a minute, I'll connect the charge. Okay. Fine. We'll discuss one by one component. So the first device is router. So anyone knows what exactly the router will do? So the router, the function of router is to switch the packet between two different network. Let's say, so this is my router is here, and this is my company's network. This is something like, okay, ABC company. What the router will be doing here is, whenever the packet is coming from here, and here is the internet. So this is a one network, this is a ABC network, and ABC network want to go internet. Okay, so these are the two different networks. Okay, internet is one and this is another network. So if you want to communicate from this network to this network, so in between you need a one device. So that is a router. So what the router will do, here the packet comes, once the packet comes from here, it will switch from your network to this network. So the functionality of router we can say as switching a packet between two different networks. That is the one function. That is the function. That is the main function of router. So even we can say the same thing in another way, connecting of two different networks. So why we are connecting? So in order to route the traffic. So another function is it performs a routing of data. So how to reach the destination? So this router have the complete information of how to reach the destination. Let's say if I want to go to Google means it have the routing table. It maintains a routing table how to reach the destination. Okay. Let's say I wanted to go to the some Gmail server. So what the router have, it has the routing table, so that whenever the packet comes from here, from your local system, so it just route to the internet. Let's say, so we can say with the one example. Let's say here there was a one guy. The one guy is a Indian, another guy is a Chinese guy. So how they will communicate? So Indian guy doesn't know Chinese. Chinese guy doesn't know Hindi or English. Okay, India guy knows only English and he don't know the Chinese language. Chinese guy knows only Chinese and he don't know the English. So how they will communicate? Whether they will communicate? No, they'll not be able to communicate. So what they will do? They will go for a one guy who knows both the languages. Either Chinese language and English language. So that guy will call as a translator. So what the translator will do, in between a China and Indian guy, he will stand in between these two guys and he will translate. Chinese guy is telling something, so he will be translating in English to the Indian guy. Indian guy is telling in English, and he will translate it to the Chinese language. So that is a mediator. The same thing here the router will do. Whenever the packet is coming from you inside of your network to inside of your network, it transfer the data to the internet. Okay. So from outside of packet is coming from outside of internet. Outside means internet. It is coming from the internet. So the router takes a packet and send it to your internet. So that is the main functionality of a router. Okay, got it? Any questions? Any doubts?
No.
Another way we can say, another way we can also tell the router. Let's say I want to. Here is a one mission. My company. This is my company in ABC. Okay. This system have an address of 192.168.10.50. The router address is always 192.168.10. It's always with a 1. It's always with a 1. So if I try to communicate to the google.com, the request will be going to the Google. The request will be going to the Google via the router. So the router will what it does the router. So the router have a 2 IP addresses. One IP address is this one. From the public facing side, means internet side, the IP address will be different, something like 80.10.0.0. Let's say I told you already. Last class I told that. So my IP address, my router IP address is, how to check IP router address? So here see, my system IP address is what? 192.168.0.104, and my router IP default gateway. So router is a gateway. So the default gateway address is 192.168.0.1. That is my Wi-Fi router address. But when you see what is my IP address, what is my system IP address, you can see as this one. This is my public facing IP address. So whenever my connection is going from inside, it's an inside IP address. When it is going, when it is going, the request is going from my system. So it's always IP address will be this 106.51.30.119. So the outside people can see my system IP address as this one. Whoever, even my friend also sent, my friend is trying to connect any of the other server. Okay. His IP address also will show the same IP address. Whoever, let's say my router, 10-15 people connected, example, my Wi-Fi router. Okay. The outside people will see that guy IP address is this one. All the 10-15 people will see the same public IP address. They won't see my private IP address. They cannot see my IP address because of the security reason. So that is who will do that. That is the router will do that. The router will never show your private IP address. Instead of it shows only your public facing IP address. So router always have a 2 IP addresses. One side will be a private IP address, other side will be public IP. So outside people can see as your public IP. Your inside of your network IPs they can't be able to see. And how router can packet filtering. For the packet filtering means, let's say I will write a access control list ACL in the router. Let's say I don't want some of the people from the internet to come inside of my network, my internal network. Let's say I don't want to allow Facebook. I don't want to allow the Facebook to my employees. Okay, what I will write? Okay, what I will write? Let's say there was a series of 192.168 or 168.10. Subnet. I don't want guys, this subnet, let's say these guys are belongs to some important team. Let's say they are belongs to some software developers example. They are using this subnet. The software team is using this subnet, and I will write in a router saying that, so please stop this complete software developers team to access the Facebook. So I will write here, there was a rule I will write saying that IP address of 192.168.10 subnet deny accessing Facebook IP address. I'll give you www.facebook.com and then Facebook IP address. So whenever this guy is trying to access, where the first request go, the inside guy is trying to access. Let's say my Wi-Fi router, I wrote a access list. I written an access list. Here I have written an access list saying that don't allow the Facebook. So I write a ACL. Okay. Now what happened? My system IP address is something. So 192.168 guys don't allow Facebook. I will write this ACL. And my IP address is what? 192.168.0.50 example. 50 is my IP address. Okay. This guy is trying to, whenever this guy is trying to reach the router, what happened? The access control, the rule is what the rule is saying, don't allow this guy. So what happened? It automatically drops the packet. This is called a packet filtering. It is performing the filtering operations. Packet filtering. It is not allowing to access the Facebook. At the same time, if you are any of the guy from the outside, let's say there was one hacker group, IP address is something like 100.10.10.0, the complete subnet text. I don't want to allow these guys, this hacker group. I will write a rule, deny this specific IP address to access our internet. So just write the statement. So whenever this is coming here, it will be, the router will stop. So that is the packet filtering. Okay, any questions? So what is the router?
Where do you write that rule? How? I have one question. Where do you write that rule? How you make that rule?
Sorry, code.
You are making the rule, right? Where do you make the rule?
I will write it in a router. So router is a device. So we will take a console of a router. Okay. We will access the router. Okay. And once you log into the router, so router also have the login credentials. So you have to take the router, log in the router, and write a rules. So there was again, so we have a router configurations, everything. That's again this a separate concept. Okay, configuring the routers, how to configure the routers, how to write access list in the router. So that is a different concept, especially the networking guys will deal with. Okay, so if you want to show router configuration. See, this is how the configuration. So this guy have access the router. See, he has access the router, so he's in a router now. So hello, hello.
Hello. Hello.
Yeah. So yeah, the my Wi-Fi router is down. The power is down.
Okay.
Okay. Fine. So see here the router, the complete router configuration. So he was into the router right now. Okay. So he was. So the complete configurations. So he's doing all the configurations. Okay, this is how the configuration of interface level, IP address, the specific. There are a lot of interfaces are there, but for us it is not required. So just we have to understand what is the router functionality. So this is done by the network engineers. So they will assign all the IP address to the interface. See, this is the interface, serial interface means it is the internet side. Whatever I have shown, right? Public IP address. So that public IP address is assigned always in the serial mode. Okay. So we don't need to know, but just I'm showing how the router will do the configurations. So this is the Ethernet side. So Ethernet side is always inside. Whatever the IP we have configured default gateway, right? The default gateway we will be assigned from the Ethernet side. Okay.
Okay.
So go through if you have any questions also you can go through. If you have doubts, you can go to the router configurations. This one. So how to set up the router and
Okay.
how to configurations. So all this stuff. Okay.
Okay.
Fine. So where we are. Okay, that's the functionality. Router. What the router will do? Connection of different networks. It
Network.
acts like it acts like a mediator between the two devices. So just what I told an example between two different people conversation. The same way here, the router will do switching connection the two different networks and switching the backend between the two different networks. So and also it can do the packet filtering. So
Filter.
packet filter. So allows. So only what I wanted to allow. Other than if I don't want to allow, means I can write a rule saying that you can allow. So that's a
Packet
router functionality.
functionality.
Yeah, it also performs the routing as. So routing means so how to reach the destination. So it have a complete routing table. So that routing table will help you to move to the right direction to reach the destination. So for that there will be again routing protocols also there. So that is out of topic for us, but still, it's knowing is good. Knowing is a good thing. So routing protocols are like RIP uh, and OSPF, EHRP, BGP, so all these things. Okay, so which calculates the best path. So let's say if I wanted to reach the Google, so there are lakhs of routes to reach the destination. So in that, it chooses the best path. Which path is the best path, and reach the destination. Which path is the less data traffic. It calculates less data traffic, less time. So that again, it uses a different algorithms to calculate the best path to reach the destination. Just like a if I Google Maps. So if I want to reach my location from my let's say from from Kormangala to somewhere, right, Whitefield. So I have a multiple paths. So the Google shows the best path to reach the destination. So reach the Whitefield. So the same way the routing algorithms will calculate the data traffic and then route the package to the best path. Okay. Now, what was the next device? What is
Firewall.
it? So, firewall. The function of firewall is it's like a security guard to your network. Okay, what it is which allows the traffic or deny the traffic, between two different networks. Means what it is doing? It is controlling the traffic. It is completely doing what? Controlling the traffic. That is what it is doing. Once again. So usually what the firewall will do is whenever it is going to deploy, so the firewall will always, so this is the internet. So sometimes the router is the first device in a couple of companies. Sometimes they will deploy the firewall as a first component in their network. It's a router will be acting as a border device, so for their network, or a firewall will be. It depends on their conveniency and so many other factors also influences. Like depends on if their traffic is huge, few cases, so they will go for the router, and the router will filter some traffic and then which given to the firewall. So that's how. Now assume that here the firewall is a perimeter device. Perimeter means border device of your network. So border device of your network. So what it will do? So I'm assuming here the firewall is a perimeter network border device. It is sitting in the border. It is monitoring every traffic coming from the outside, means internet. Now, if you deploy a firewall, so by default, the firewall will not allow the traffic from, this is the internet. Okay, sorry. This is just think as a, this is your local network. This is called as a company ABC network. Here the company ABC firewall, and this is the internet. So internet, whenever the traffic coming from internet to ABC network, which always drop. It will not allow the traffic from your network to traffic from internet to your network. Always drop. Whenever the traffic from internal guy to outside means internet, which always allow. That is the default. That is the default functionality of firewall. So even we can say in other words, internet is always considered as untrusted. Untrusted means we cannot say we will not be able to trust this. So there was in terms of for the view of client for the this customer ABC, the internet is always considered as untrusted, and the ABC network is always trusted. So this is how the firewall believes firewall configuration will be. So whenever the traffic from untrusted network comes to your network, to means your network is what trusted network. So it automatically drops. The firewall will automatically drop the traffic, and the traffic from trusted network to untrusted will always allow. Just imagine like a just imagine like this is like a watchman. Let's say your company watchman is there. Your company watchman is there. If you have if you don't have if you don't have a ID card, if you don't have ID card, means by default by default you don't have an access card. If you're a no, if you're not belongs to the company, so means what do you mean by that? You don't have an IP, you don't have an access card, or you don't have an ID card. So the reception that the security guard will not allow you to enter into the company, right? The same time, from the
Hello.
inside of a company, from the inside company, he can
Your
go
voice is
to
not
he
audible.
can go to outside. For that reason only he's in company. So that's why he sorry.
Your voice is not audible. It is breaking continuously.
Yeah, I think this is a problem with the network. 1 second, I'll connect with some other Wi-Fi, some other. 1 second. Um, Hello. Is it fine? It's audible, no?
Yeah.
Audible.
Cool. So the firewall is always allow the traffic. So this internet considered as a untrusted network, untrusted, and this is a trusted network. Your company network as a trusted network. So that's how the firewall configuration firewall will be. So whenever you deploy your firewall, so it's always internet traffic will always block, and ABC traffic will always permitted to and permitted by the firewall. It's just like a security guard. As I said, security guard, what the security guard will do. So whenever the guy is coming from, let's say if you're in your college, so in your college, if any of the guy is coming from, let's say college, in your college, if any of the guy is coming from outside of the college and he doesn't have a proper ID, he doesn't have any ID card, that guy will be allowed by the security guys in the gate itself. They will stop and they will not allow to enter into your college. In the same time, when somebody is coming from your college to outside, by default they will allow, right? By default they will allow because they are college students. They belongs to their that college, so that's why they are coming from inside of college to outside. But if you want to enter into college, you should have a proper ID card and everything. Then only it will be allowed. Otherwise, it will be dropped. That's a one example. If you want to allow now, if I wanted to allow the traffic from internet to this network, what I'm gonna do? I have to write a rule in the firewall. I have to write a rule in the firewall saying that IP of X something, any of the IP, allow with the port number of something, port number of 20 or 21 something. So you're gonna write a rule in the firewall saying that, hey, this guy is authorized to enter into the network, so please allow this guy. So you have to write a rule. Okay, if the traffic from internet to your network, and then other vice versa, think vice versa, from trusted to internet, anybody can allow. I don't want this trusted guy to access some other content in the internet. So I will write a rule here. I will write a rule to stop the connection. Okay, that is the. So did you see the difference, router and the firewall? Is there any difference you observed? So that we will discuss now. So another point is this: the firewall will do the stateful inspection. So what do you mean by the state inspection? Let's say this guy is trying to access ABC network internet. So let's say 100.0.0.10 authorized to access, allow this. And what happened once it is a table, state table, the state table automatically creates an entry, source IP address, destination IP address, and what port number, and everything will be stored here. Source IP address is what? 100.0.0.10, and which IP address is accessing? Some ABC, something like a 10.0.0.1. Okay, what happens? The session table, this state table or session table, this session table will always wait for a return packet as well. Okay, return packet. If there is no return packet from this IP to this again, so it waits for some time. So it called as a session. Then there is a certain limit. Okay, if there is no reply from this device to this device, it stopped the session. Okay, it stopped the session. Why? So there is a one security risk is there. So that is the reason this specific feature is added in the firewall. So what is that security risk is? DDoS. It's a DDoS attack. To protect from the DDoS attacks, so what they will do is they will always the firewall will always keep track of every connections passing from your network to outside to your network. So whenever there was any abnormal, that means if the traffic is not coming from this IP to that IP, first it allows the traffic, and there is no return traffic. There is no return traffic from the either this side, internet side, or internal network. So what happens? So it drops the session. So we will discuss why it dropping. So we'll discuss in the DDoS attack part. So in the DDoS attack, we will discuss the role of firewall, the importance of firewall. If I am telling now, so you will be jumping into the another concept. So I have to tell again what is the DDoS, so how DDoS works, and then what is the role of firewall in the DDoS. But just remember that, so it performs the stateful inspection. So stateful inspection means tracking every connections going from your network to outside to your network. So tracking each and every connections, and which should be have a certain time limit for each and every connection. If it is exceeded that connection, automatically the firewall will drop. So why it is going to drop, that we will discuss in the DDoS part. Okay, just remember, firewall will do the stateful inspection. The stateful inspection is tracking of all the connections from in to out to in. Okay. And if I want to permit from internet to inside, so access control list. Okay. Any questions in the firewall? So firewall with allow, deny the traffic based on the rule what you configured in the firewall. If I am writing a rule from inside to from internet to inside, so I'll write to allow. So that is the allow. If I from the internal computer, I don't access a certain website, so I will write a deny rule. I will write a deny rule so that people cannot access. So allow or disallow or a deny. So that's how the firewall works. So we have the vendors, we have the routers. What are the vendors we have? Who will manufacture the routers? So Cisco will manufacture the routers. Juniper will Juniper also manufacture routers. They are in the market actually. So these are the leading companies in the routers manufacturing. And the firewalls, so a lot of firewalls we have. So first one is Cisco. Cisco is manufacturing the firewalls. Palo Alto manufacturing. Checkpoint. Okay. Juniper SRX firewalls. Like that. What else? Cisco, Palo Alto, Checkpoint, Juniper. Yeah, these are the top leading manufacturing companies. Okay. Then what we have is proxy. Okay. Proxy is also manufactured by Cisco, McAfee. Okay, so like that we have a manufacturers also there. So what is a proxy? Proxy function is the function of proxy is whenever user, this guy is trying to access some website www.google.com. So what the proxy will do here? The request will go to the proxy. Proxy will verify the content, and then it will go to the internet. It will go to the internet. So as I said, firewall will only see the layer 4 traffic. Layer 4 traffic. Layer 4 is what? Transport layer. Transport layer will be something like a IPs and layer 3 and layer 4, network and transport layer. It locates into the firewall only see the network and means layer 3 and layer 4 traffic. Network and transportation data means IPs and port numbers. It only look at the IPs and port numbers. It doesn't see what is the payload. So the IP address means if you look at a one packet, it is having the IP address, port numbers along with the data, payload, everything will be there. Okay, but firewall only see the IP address and port numbers. Proxy, here the proxy we have a web application. Again, we have a different firewalls also. There's web application firewalls which look into the layer 7 traffic. That's a HTTP, HTTPS traffic. We'll discuss later part that is. But here the proxy will be first when you try to initiate the traffic web request, Google request. So it stops the traffic here. It means it stop here. The proxy will initiate a connection to the internet. So means the connection will stop here. Means what is the source IP? Let's say this is a 10.0.0.1. The proxy will stop here and it initiate a new connection to the website. And also the proxy administrator, what they will do is even they will block the certain range of IP addresses. Means that if they don't want to access a firewall, so certain websites like a Facebook, so they will configure in the proxy levels. They will say that don't allow this. They don't allow the traffic from Facebook. And even they can monitor if somebody is accessing some unauthorized websites, some unauthorized websites which is not allowed by the company. I mean, let's say some unwanted contents, unwanted stuff they are trying to access. So in the internet. So what happened? So this proxy administrator will keep monitoring all the stuff. Okay, if you're accessing some unusual content, unusual websites or unusual content in the internet, that will also monitor here, and the firewall administrator get an alert. Okay, for the security purpose, security reasons, what the firewall will do, the firewall have the intelligence. The proxy have the proxy have. They have the intelligence. They will feed all the attackers IP addresses, attackers URLs, domains, all they will feed into the proxy. If somebody is trying to access that website, means that system is compromised. Let's say the attacker is compromised that server, and he is trying to connect some malicious URL. So this proxy will detect if the proxy have the database, and the database contain lakhs of malicious domains and URLs. So if anything match with that, so it always what it proxy will do, it always match with the, it always compare this. Oh, if somebody is accessing this website, let's say www.facebook.com. So this facebook.com will always match with the malicious database, malicious URL database. If there is any hit from this URL, so automatically you get an alert. So that is a security reason. We'll discuss later about how this proxy works. Okay. Any questions in the proxy side? So proxy is always, whenever the user connection is initiated, it stops and it creates a new connection to the Google or Facebook or whatever the internet, whatever you're trying to access the internet. So your system will not be visible to outside. Got it?
Yeah.
Now, the next device is, what is the next device?
IPS, IDS.
Yeah, so we missed an IPS.
Yes.
So IPS or IPS. So intrusion, name itself is telling. Intrusion, prevention.
Prevention and detection.
Yeah, just this is IPS, right? So intrusion, what is the meaning of intrusion? Something unwanted activity,
Yes.
malicious intent. Intrusion prevention system. So we'll discuss a definition today. We don't have power in my room. So intrusion prevention. So what it does, whenever intrusion activities like a attacker activity, so what it will do, it will prevent automatically. Let's say if any of the attacker is trying to reach your network. Okay, this is your network. Let's say this is your ABC network. So IPS is always whenever intrusion activity detects, it automatically blocks. How it blocks? So how the IPS knows this is a malicious activity? Depends on the payload. So it always looks the payload. So firewall will see the IP address and port numbers. Let's say this is a one packet, right? So the one packet contains IP addresses, and when the source address, source IP address, destination IP address, port numbers, everything. Then after that there will be a data inside. There will be a data. That is the, so will be looking by the IPS. So if there is a pattern, so every attack have a pattern that is called as signatures. So if this signature, this IPS have a all attackers, so previous attacks, whatever the previous attacks, and their signatures will be loaded. The database loaded with all previous attacks and how the previous attack packet looks. Let's say there was last week there was a cognizant ransomware attack. So the cognizant ransomware attack, so the payload structure, how the payload will be, that payload structure will be there in the pattern will be there in the database. Whenever the same guy was trying to attack your network, the IPS have the database, right? That database, whenever the traffic comes here, that traffic will be verified. That traffic will be checked with the existing database signatures. existing database signatures. Existing database signatures. If it is there, if it is matched with any of the pattern, it gives a alert.
Okay.
Okay, and it not gives an only alert. It also prevent. It also prevention of the connection. It block the activity of this attacker. It blocks the attacker activity. It blocks this specific packet so that it will not reach your network. So that is the IPS. And I think my system battery is almost down. Okay, we'll discuss tomorrow, or possibly I'll connect by evening. Okay, 45 minutes or 1 hour I'll connect by evening. So make
Okay.
remember all these things. The IPS, IDS, firewall, router, proxy. We'll discuss more about the IDS. IPS is, this is what IPS. It's all about signature based. So if a specific
Okay.
signature matches with the alert, at the same time it prevents the activity. Okay.
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 If signature doesn't